A couple of years ago, I was asked to do like a 6-minute case for the truth of Christianity on a witness stand in a movie. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do this in 6 minutes, we need to know, is there any really good reason to believe this is true? They didn't ask me to get up and give my opinion. They asked me to get up and actually make a case for it. So you've been hearing people talk about this. Mike Lycona was here with us yesterday and talked about the reason why he believes, why we can be confident in the reliability of the New Testament. Okay, I want to do the same kind of thing, but I want to focus on a slightly different topic, and we're going to do it from a book that I wrote called Cold Case Christianity. I want to focus on what ends up being the most important single claim, evidential claim of Christianity. And we're just going to start and stay right in that topic tonight, okay? You know, in our town, when you get dispatched to a call because there's a dead person, those are called DBRs, dead body reports. And you get dispatched to DBRs when you get there, it's because somebody has died rather suspiciously. A couple of years ago, a couple of our officers got dispatched to a DBR. And at the DBR, there was a woman, and they recognized this woman's name and her address because they had worked her before. They had been involved with, I had actually had a case with her. She was a bank robber. Weird, right? But she was a drug addict, a really committed drug addict, and she was now dead in her bed. So the officers get there, and they walk up on her bed, and this is her nightstand. Pretty interesting nightstand, right? This is probably like your nightstand, I'm sure. And if you look at it closely, you'll see that she's a heroin user, so she's got 3 heroin needles, one here, one here, one here. She's cooking on the bottom of that can. But because heroin will depress you and kind of make you non-responsive, she needed to function, so she would also smoke rock cocaine. So these are all of her cocaine pipes here. And that combination can be a nightmare. I remember when I arrested her for bank robbery, she would keep on falling asleep during the interview because she said, "Jim, you gotta let me hit my rock pipe so I can stay awake." Like, yeah, that's what's gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. And so I could never get an interview. And then I did this. I'm like, really? I could never get an interview out of her. And now here she is dead in her bed. What do you think the officers thought the cause of death was? Yeah. So they call the coroner's office out, because in our agency, you call Los Angeles coroner's office to collect a dead body, and it takes forever for people to get there because we get like hundreds of dead bodies a day at the LA coroner's office. But about an hour and 15 minutes later, the coroner's investigator gets there and collects the body, pulls down the blankets, and sees that she's been stabbed to death. Yeah, officers are in the room kind of waiting for the investigators to get there, and they didn't even pull down the blankets. Well, why? Because they thought they knew the answer before they even rolled up on the place. Once they were dispatched, they're like, oh, eventually she was going to die. Here it is. Today's the day she overdosed. Then they get there, they see that nightstand, they're like, well, there you go. If you think you know the answer before you even start an investigation, oh, trust me. Number one, you're going to probably come to the wrong conclusion. 2, you're not even going to go look for the right evidence. You're going to stop looking for evidence too early because you already think you know the answer. I just want to tell that story because we're really trying to get at what is true. Like, what is the most reasonable inference from evidence? And by the way, the standard of proof is not beyond a possible doubt, because I'd never convict anybody if it was beyond a possible doubt. I've never been able to answer every question for a jury. You have to learn how to render a verdict even though you have open questions. I've had cases where I don't even know how he killed her, when he killed her, what he did with her body. We never had a body. Where's her body now? Don't know. You got to be able to render a verdict even though you can't answer the most significant questions in the case, because the standard is not beyond a possible doubt, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a lower standard. Does that make sense? I don't even care about what's possible. I only care about what's reasonable, because that's the standard. But how do we know? How do we decide what's reasonable? I want to teach you that skill set tonight. Okay, let's start with the dead body. This body is a little less gruesome. Looks suspiciously like my son, Jimmy. Do you guys have Trader Joe's in Tucson? So you would never kill a Trader, I would never kill a Trader Joe's employee because we would starve, okay? Because we buy everything from Trader Joe's. Now, a dead guy in a room is not always a murder. Lots of reasons why people die. There are 4 reasons why people die. Only one of them is a homicide. So how do I determine if this death scene is a crime scene? Well, I make 2 lists that begin with the letter E. First, I make a list of evidence, and I compare the evidence in the room with explanations for the evidence in the room. So far what I have something simple. I have a dead guy laying face down. How do you explain dead guys laying face down? There are 4 ways to explain them. Got any guesses? You can actually participate in this part. Just scream out what you think is like, how do people die? There are 4 ways to die. Natural causes a heart attack, that's right. So that would be one way, a natural. Anything else? Someone said if you trip or accidental, that's another way to die. Anything else? A murder is a way to die, but even before that, suicide is a way, and then you have homicides. Okay, so how do I know which of these 4 is the most reasonable explanation for the evidence in the room right now? Well, what can I cross out? Go ahead, yell it out. What can I cross out? Suicide? Well, if he intentionally took too many pills, he would look like this, wouldn't he? Heck, if I poisoned him with too many pills, he would look. If he accidentally took too many pills, if he just died of a heart attack, he would. I can't cross out anything right now. Let's change our scenario. What if he's a dead guy laying face down, but he's now in a pool of his own blood, center torso? Would that change things? Okay, so now I can add a piece of evidence to my list. Can I cross out anything? Yeah, I think I can cross out natural. Is it possible? Yes, anything is possible. But it's not reasonable. I'm not after possible, I'm after reasonable. Make sense? Look, he might bleed out from his nose or his mouth, but to bleed out from your center torso, like how does that even, no, I can probably rule out a natural. Can I cross out anything else? Not really, not until I roll him over and see what the injury is. Would you agree? So let's just leave it for now. Let's change the scenario. What if he's a dead guy laying face down in a pool of his own blood, but now he's got a big hunk of knife sticking out of his back? Would that change things? Let's put that on our evidence list. Okay. What can I cross out now? Well, I think, look, I can't imagine how you could accidentally back up into that knife. Is it possible? Yeah, but it doesn't seem reasonable you could accidentally back up into that knife in a vertical position. I think I can cross out accidental, but now some people think I can cross out suicide too. Look, that's low enough. It's not in his high back, it's in his low back. Well, I mean, trust me, a lot of the suicides I go to are people who are high when they commit suicide. You see the craziest suicides. So I think I'm gonna leave that in for now. Let's change our scenario though. What if we have a dead guy, he's laying face down, and he's got a knife in his back, that's not good. But he's also got multiple stab wounds in his upper back. That changes things, right? So now we can add that additional detail. Now, I think it's going to be, maybe he's got a super high, he's very flexible and high tolerance for pain. He's able to do that 100 times. I don't know. I think that's probably not reasonable, though. So I can probably cross out suicide. And for sure, if in addition to all this, we had bloody footprints leading out of the room, really hard to stab yourself multiple times in your own back and then walk out of the room in your own blood. Would you agree? That is probably going to be a homicide. Is it possible that it's not? Yes, of course. But this is the most reasonable inference from evidence. And by the way, this is Jimmy still alive, okay? We went to UCLA. I went to UCLA. Jimmy went to UCLA, so we're both Bruins. And my son David went to USC. And I always say he's a communist, okay, just so you know. That's the difference. So, I just taught you a skill set that I talk about in cold case Christianity. It's just known as abductive reasoning, or inferring to the most reasonable explanation. We do this at every death scene. We ask jurors to do this in every homicide trial. If you were impaneled on a jury for me, I'd be asking you to look at the explanations that I'm offering, the explanations the defense team is offering, and tell me based on the evidence which of these 2 explanations is most reasonable. That's what we do. Make sense? As a matter of fact, courtrooms are excellent laboratories for determining truth. And you learn a lot. We interview all of the jurors after trials to see what we did well, what we did wrong. What was it that persuaded you? What was unpersuasive? We're trying to figure this stuff out for the next jury trial.